Welcome back to day 2 of the MultiLila Project event. I'm still Natasha Southwell, and those of you who are joining us today, I'm from the British Council and the MC for the event. So we are going to start with a recap of day 1. I now would like to invite Professor Theo Marinis from the University of Reading. He'll give you an overview, a recap of day 1 and an overview of what's to come today.
Okay, thank you very much. A very warm welcome from me as well, and a very good morning. Thank you for coming on day 2. So what I'm going to do now is do a recap from day 1, and then do a short introduction to day 2. And I'm going to, it is quite a difficult task actually to summarize a whole day in half an hour. So what I've done is I prepared some main points from several of the talks and the discussions from yesterday, and I've been selective. So if any of you gave a talk yesterday and you see I'm presenting something different or I'm not presenting everything, it's because we have to be selective, because we only have half an hour to put the main points. So yesterday we started with a plenary by Dr. Dhiran Jigram, who talked about multilingual education, attitudes, policies, and practice. And what was very important was, first of all, he talked about the focus on language, that actually language is for understanding, for reasoning, thinking, and learning to learn. So it's not just learning a subject. When children go to school, they're learning to learn further things for the rest of their life. And so he raised several issues which are very important, that, for example, there are interventions from government, which are typically top-down rather than bottom-up. One of the issues that is very important is the issue of migration. So here in India, a lot of children come from a different states, move to live in a different city. So they may speak many different languages. And this is not very much acknowledged. So Hindi may not be a common language. And he raised that very important issue that this is happening in schools. And he also was very critical about some teachers not being able to teach English in an English medium instruction setting. Then he came up to discuss some principles of multilingual education and some issues of advocacy. So what are the things that people can do? How can we advocate multilingual education? So in terms of the principles, some of the main points that he was making was that we have to develop awareness of multilingualism in the classroom, develop multilingual competencies in the classroom, also include children's languages formally, so there will be informal languages spoken in the school, but he spoke about the importance of having formally introduced several languages in the classroom, because this is providing respect for languages, and that has a positive impact on the students. And also that language is not just language, that is also culture and cultural experiences. So if we include languages in the classroom, that also includes their cultures and experiences. The important aspects of advocacy was, first of all, that we need to seek political support in order to make change. Whatever change has to be done. And then there are some tricks that we can do about it. So if we talk about raising learning outcomes within estates or improving English in a classroom, this is a good point to make in order to get the support from governments. When we talk with different ethnic groups, if we talk to them about protecting culture, protecting identity, that's another way to advocate multilingualism in a classroom. Improving teaching and learning of early literacy is another point that we can use to advocate, and also providing evidence to governments so that whatever decisions they make, they're bottom-up based on some evidence. And this is where also this project is very important, because it wants to provide some evidence that then the governments can use in order to make changes. He also came to tell us what should governments do and NGOs and other agencies, and maybe some of the things that they shouldn't be doing. And so some of the important things were, first of all, to create flexible policies. So not create a policy that's going to be applied across all states or across all schools in a specific state. Provide flexibility so that schools, depending on the children in the classrooms, they can modify and adapt. Make some sociolinguistic mapping in order to document variation. So whatever policies are being in place, they reflect the variations in the classrooms. He advocated that English should not be the medium of instruction, at least for very young children before the grade 3. He suggested that some pilot programs are run so that from the pilot programs we learn and then we have some larger programs, and put a lot of effort on teacher education. So these were the main points, and of course there were many others, but that was my take of what is kind of were very important points in the talk. You will see that as I'm progressing, several things that were raised, I'm not going to raise them again because I don't want to repeat. So I'm going to go to do a little summary of Ianthi Tsimpli's overview of the MultiLila project. So Ianthi started by presenting the background and what was the problem that this project is addressing. And the problem is that there are low learning incomes in primary schools in India, and that has been documented in many reports. At the same time, there are many studies showing that bilingual children have advantages compared to other groups of children. So the main question is, why do some children in India not benefit from the fact that they are bilingual or multilingual? So this is the background, and this is how this project started. It's a very large project, and so Ianthi presented yesterday the different aspects that the project is addressing. So obviously it's looking at the learning outcomes, but then there are many variables, educational variables, mother tongue education. We're looking at teacher qualification. We're looking at linguistic diversity in the classroom. But in her talk yesterday, she talked about external variables, about issues related to gender, differences between boys and girls, and differences related to low socioeconomic backgrounds, so differences between children with deprived versus very deprived areas. And I summarize here in one slide some of the main results that have been reported yesterday, and this is preliminary results. So hopefully in the next couple of years, we're going to have more findings, and then we can confirm which of those results are going to be sustained. So there is one result of gender. So in terms of basic literacy, in both Hindi and English, girls are performing better than boys. In terms of subtraction in maths, we have the opposite effect. There were some effects of environment. In terms of maths and division, children in more deprived areas perform better than in less deprived areas. And more or less the same effect was observed in mathematical reasoning. And of course, this is a question of why is this the case, and that was discussed in terms of the children's life experiences. That children who lived in very deprived areas, they may be helping the parents in different work activities, and they may be using maths in terms of everyday life activities, and that may help them be able to use mathematical reasoning, which is not strictly speaking at the school level, it is more at the global level, being able to make calculations in real life. The other point that was observed was that there are multiple relationships between the tasks. So literacy correlates with numeracy and mathematical reasoning, and cognition correlates with literacy and maths. So basically what that means is that children who are good in one of those, they're also good in the others. And children who are less good in one of those are less good in the others. So this is what you would usually expect, but it's brilliant if you find it, and that means that language, there's a strong relationship between language, cognition, and maths and literacy. So if we support one of them, that potentially may benefit the others. So after the Athens talk, we had a panel discussion chaired by Debanjan Chakrabarti, and the aim of the panel was to discuss the role of home languages and English in multilingual education in India. And I just took a couple of lines for each one of the panelists. What my take was about something new that was brought in the discussion. One of the issues that was discussed is the challenges. So as you will see in my discussion, part of it is challenges, part of it is opportunities, what can be done. So Dr. Dear Jingran talked about teacher education as being a challenge and also an opportunity to make change, to improve things, so that teacher education doesn't prepare teachers for the diversity they encounter in a multilingual classroom. And something has to be done about it. Children are also not encouraged to take risks, to become autonomous, to work on their own with the guidance of the teachers, so they learn how to learn. So instead, they are very much dependent on the teacher in the classroom. And also the other issue he discussed is the need for flexible multilingual education policies, so that schools have the flexibility and the freedom to do things depending on the students they have in the classroom. Vipha Sharma gave some very good examples about vocational education in vocational skills and life skills from the organization she's working in. And also she brought in the issue of migration and language, that there are many students in the classrooms speaking many different languages. And so what is the way forward? How can we support the students speaking many different languages? And also she raised the issue of English being very important as a currency for opportunities in the future. So there was discussion about advantages, disadvantages of English as a medium of instruction, having English in the school, and she raised the issue that this is an opportunity for the future. Dr. Reedy Dastanka talks about methodologies for home language education, and also the attitude of the teachers that there should be a recognition of regional languages and how important regional languages are, and that may be something that has not been highlighted to a very large extent. We had another two presenters at the panel. Ganesh Devi talked about the risk of languages dying in India. So he presented some results. How many languages were recorded in 1961? How many languages in 2011? And he noted that 283 languages have died within this period of time. He also presented some statistics to show that some languages are languages of power. Hindi is one of them, and Hindi, there is an increase in the people in India speaking Hindi. Other languages can be described as languages of knowledge, and English is one of them. And he was talking about the importance of having exposure and being able to communicate and use different languages, but not just languages of power and languages of knowledge, but also the other languages that exist here in India, because otherwise those languages are going to die in the future. He raised the issue of recognition of multilingual zones. So instead of talking about the states and the language policy in the states, having language policies in specific zones that have multilingual context. And he talked also about the need to reorganize the school system in order to meet language needs. Now, there was one thing that I found very controversial in his talk, and that was about the role of formal education as a contributing factor for languages to die out. And this is something which is controversial, because we know that education is a ticket for success for children, but at the same time, if the children do not get education in several of the languages they speak in the home, and there is no home language education, there is the risk that the home languages may start disappearing in the future. Final presentation was by Kadi Soren. He was talking about multilingualism in tribal areas, which is another issue which is very important here in India, and that wasn't discussed by many of the other panelists. And raising the issue that when a language dies, it's not just the language, it's the tradition, it's the culture. And that when we have a school curriculum that is being adapted in a particular region for a particular language, by just translating a curriculum, that is not an appropriate way to function, because by translating the curriculum, we may not translate the culture. We have to translate also the culture and adapt a curriculum within the specific culture of the specific community. So after the panel, there were several presentations from the collaborators of the project, of MultiLila project here in India. And I have one slide for each one of the presentations, one or two, presenting some additional points from the points that Yanthi presented at the beginning. So one important aspect, I think, that was raised by the Delhi team was the many different languages spoken in the classroom. So this shows, so this graph shows in one school in Delhi the proportion of students speaking how many different languages, and you see that there are many different languages, and this is beyond the school languages. The Delhi team also presented results about boys and girls, about different socioeconomic backgrounds. But one aspect that was novel and I think should be raised is the issue of Hindi medium versus English medium students. So it looks as if for some of the tasks, children in a Hindi medium school are performing better than children in an English medium. And this is in particular in numerous tasks, in word problems, and in meta maths. So that is a fact in this first group analysis that is going to be verified, but it's important to think why this is happening and what is the underlying reason. And so what was discussed yesterday is that maybe teachers in schools in the most deprived areas are permitting the use of the home languages. And that may be a factor that is contributing to children having better skills in terms of maths, numeracy, and word problems, because when they use home languages, that helps children to grasp the different concepts and then being able to perform better in the tasks. Along with that, the other hypothesis is that children from slum area are involved more in household chores, including marketing, handling money independently. That could be another reason. And also the effect of students from less deprived areas attending low-cost, overcrowded private tuition classes after school. So maybe the children who are living less deprived, if they attend those private tuition classes, that may have a disadvantage. I mean, obviously, these are now hypotheses that within this project will be explored, and hopefully in the next conference, we'll be able to give more conclusive answers. Then we had presentations from the group from Hyderabad. And here is a slide to show, again, the variability in the different languages. So you can see on the left different languages and how many children speak all those different languages. And then some additional results from Hyderabad in terms of the role of the medium of instruction and differences between students who have home language as a medium of instruction compared to other children. So some of the findings are that medium of instruction is affecting the results. In particular, literacy in English, children with English medium are performing better than Telugu medium. I mean, this is not rocket science. This is something that everyone is going to understand, that if the medium of instruction is English, maybe literacy in English is going to be better. But word problems is the opposite. The children with Telugu medium perform better than English medium, and for number recognition, the same thing. So these are trends, and they will be verified with larger groups, but there are very interesting results showing that depending what the medium of instruction, you may have different results in literacy versus maths. The other aspect was the use of home language as a medium of instruction, and students with medium of instruction different from the home language were better than students with the same medium of instruction in terms of English. And again, if English is the medium of instruction, you would expect that. But in terms of cognition, students with medium of instruction which is different from the home language, again, were performing better. And that may be an issue of juggling between home language plus a different language as a medium of instruction, and that being beneficial for cognitive abilities. Now, the final presentation from the project was by the other Hyderabad group, which is collecting data in Patna. So I'm calling it a Patna team, although the results yesterday were not from Patna, they were from Hyderabad. So I'm sorry for this kind of confusing, is that Hyderabad or Patna? The results are from Hyderabad. So the extra aspect that this group presented was results from a narrative task that was delivered to children. And the narrative task was in English and also in Hindi. And there were some differences in different parts of the narrative task. So one aspect was story grammar, where the children were performing similarly in Hindi and English. So in that presentation, we saw that children are performing similarly in the two languages in some domains of the narrative, and that was story grammar, structure complexity, so children who are performing good in Hindi, performing good in English as well. In vocabulary, we saw that children were performing better in Hindi than English in terms of lexical variety, but there was no difference between the two languages in terms of the lexical density. And there was also a difference in referring expressions, so children were using more noun phrases and pronouns in Hindi than in English. Another interesting aspect was that children were transferring the word order from the first language to the second language. So children were using English with the Hindi word order. So that was the end of the presentations yesterday, and in the afternoon we went to the British Council where there was the launch of a report from a different project, but this report was on multilingualism, so there was a clear connection between this project and that report. The report was on multilingual classrooms in Ghana and in India, about opportunities and challenges for English medium instruction in low and middle income countries. I have a copy of the report here. So as you can see, it's a very detailed report. Yesterday, they were only able to present for 20 minutes about the report, some findings of the report. But I was told that some copies of this report are here today, and you can also download it online from the website. So this is something that would be useful for people to read, especially because it compares two countries, and it's quite interesting to see what are the differences in the two different settings. So this was the summary of yesterday. And today, we are going to have, first of all, a plenary by Amy Lightfoot. She analyzed some of the classroom observations from the MultiLila project. So the MultiLila project has a lot of tasks that children had to do, but there were also a lot of interviews with teachers, and there were also observations of the classrooms. So we gave Amy some of the observations to do a first analysis, a preliminary analysis of some of the observations, and she's going to present this analysis here now in the plenary. And after the plenary, we have 3 different sessions. These are group works, so that we have some interactive sessions with all of you to address some of the issues related to multilingual education and multilingual classrooms here in India. And the aim of those sessions is to participate in order to have some knowledge transfer, and the knowledge transfer is knowledge between all of us. Everyone should learn from everyone else, and at the end of the day, the people who are coordinating those sessions are going to summarize what have we learned from all the sessions, and this is going to be circulated to everyone. So without further ado, I'm going to finish this, and I'm looking forward for the rest of the day. Everyone should have this program, and if you turn the pages, you will see what all those sessions are. So you can choose which session you would like to follow after Amy's plenary and after the coffee break. Thank you.